A long, long time ago. For Sergeant Fortuno, the last 10 minutes had been a blur, a terrible blur. He had been ordered to go into the old quarter to track down one man. His eyes widened to almost bursting when he was instructed to take his own and 2 more units with him to be sure. 30 Astartes, 3 full squads, just to take down one man. What was he, a Primarch? In the next half day he learnt the hard way. They had been tracking him in the streets, closing the net, when matters suddenly turned on them as they strung themselves out to make sure he could not escape. The net was wide. Tiberius' squad was strung out thus when it came. One after another of them in quick succession was ended, the life signs going flat in mere instances. Fortuna ordered the men to close ranks and almost bunker. What in the name of the Emperor and all his sons could do this to Astartes? Gracchus' squad was there 1 minute, gone the next. He heard them shouting, as something large had just appeared amongst them and was killing fast. The one sentence he made out was confusing. "It's in power armor." Finally, it came to their turn. But it did not speak, or pounce on them. It just walked towards them, as bold as brass, as clear as day. A massive man, but definitely a human, but too big to be even an Astartes. It was wearing an archaic set of power armor, the likes he had never seen before. But for all its simplicity, it protected the monster within as he charged at them. It took many shots, but few penetrated its armor. When he hit the squad, he went through them like a hot knife through batter. It crushed them and killed them, all until it got to him. Armor damaged in places, blood soaked. It was slower now. As it reached toward the sergeant, his power sword leapt up and cut off both the extended hands. The Astartes then, without a nanosecond of hesitation, stepped in and impaled the huge being with his power sword. It plunged dead center, between where an Astartes' 2 hearts are, but most definitely it severed its spinal cord. A stroke that would kill a Marine instantly. Yet still this being lived. As it slowly toppled backwards against the wall, it slid down, leaving a large red patch across the wall. The sun lit its face in a golden halo as he closed his eyes, basking for a moment. He was dying. His eyes opened. A trickle of blood came out of his mouth before he started to quietly speak. How could he? We marched for him. We fought for him. We bled for him. We died for him. Everything he has today, everything he has achieved, everything he owns was bought with our toil, our suffering. He was our leader, our general, our king. We trusted him. We would have worshipped him if he would have allowed it. Nothing he asked was too much. Never anything we gave enough. He was our Lord, and we would have followed him into hell if he had but asked. But he betrayed us. How could he? The last battle of the war. The last outpost of resistance on a conquered world. We wondered why he did not just loose nuclear weapons at it and flatten it. Mount Ararat, where the very last separatists on Terra huddled awaiting the end of all things. One last obstacle to the beginning of a bright new era. The Emperor's rule, a unified Terra, a unified home for humanity. We did not fight for this, it is true. We fought because we loved it. We fought because we were raised on conflict and slaughter. We fought because he made us anew, made us unstoppable, unbeatable. But most of all, we fought for him, for the Emperor. It was to be the last object lesson, you see. We were not distributed much ammunition. We were told we would not need it. The entirety of the remaining Thunder Warriors would scale the mountain and plant the flag of the Emperor upon its summit and usher in the new Golden Age. It was going to be a bloody assault, but the result was foregone. They would not stand a chance against us, his Thunder Warriors. And so it was. It was easy. Bloody, but easy. Proudly we stood arrayed for a parade on the Mount of Ararat, waiting our reward, waiting our acclaim. The war was over. The deed was done. When the custodians, the Emperor's personal guard, arrived and took up positions at the edge of the plateau, we assumed it was to add to the event, the pomp. After all, it was a day of circumstance. Then the nightmare began. The custodians levelled their weapons and walked towards us, opening up. Their fire seared into our ranks and cut us down in our droves. In confusion and pain, we ran one way or another, trying to escape, but there was none. I even thought I saw him there. I will never be certain, but I think I saw Thunder Warriors fly into the air so high that only he could have been doing it. A few of us broke the spell of confusion and our instincts kicked in. We charged the lines of custodies, and with great losses we broke through. Pitifully few of us, but I was one. We ran. We ran and ran, and have never stopped running. Unlike most of my brothers, I am more stable. I have lasted by hook or by crook, a gene splice here, a concoction there. But each day has been a battle. It became a battle I no longer wished to win. So I let them find me. I let you find me. One last battle, one last day of fire and swords and skill and honor. I have bested over a score of the things created to replace me. I can die at peace with honor. I am going. You think you love him, would do anything for him, for duty. You think he loves you, that he honors his warriors. He does not. You are, as I was, just his latest tool. He will discard you when your usefulness has elapsed. He will kill you all, like he killed us. His honored, his loyal Thunder Warriors. How could he? With that, the huge man's eyes glazed for the last time, a single tear drawing a pitiful trail down his already greying cheek. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Voldemort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and history of the Warhammer 40k universe. Today, we shall take a necessary step backward in time, to the era before the Great Crusade, over 10,000 years before the present timeline of the setting. Today, we discuss, in brief only, the Thunder Warriors. Not only are they a fundamental part of the history of the Imperium, and show the development of the Space Marines, but their tragic tale also shines a light into one of the murkier edges of the character or purpose of the Master of Mankind, the Emperor. An important step to take for an entry I am working on. For there are so many ways to view the Emperor, but an Arthur or Solomon he is certainly not. He is as complicated as any character you will find in this grim and dark universe. To a certain extent, it could be argued that he is its most important character. But let the digression end, for today we talk of the Thunder Warriors. What were they? When did they fight? For whom and why? Well, I hope my introductory story has shed a little light at least, but let us get into it. In the times before the Emperor arose, the human race had gone from titans bestriding the galaxy to being on the verge of annihilation. Human technological marvels knew few limits, but this enlightened age of prosperity and peace was not to last. A myriad of woes occurred in short order, and the previously beneficial government fell, as planets were cut off from each other and pandemonium and horror ensued. What then came were millennia of suffering and regression. On Holy Terra, the birthplace of humanity, previously called Earth, it was probably one of the worst of all. The technology of destruction was still available on Earth, though all progress had stopped. But still, weapons of war and despicable practices in gene manipulation were rife and unrestrained. So tyrants and despots arose, one after another, again and again. They were soon dubbed techno-barbarian kings, as they had all of the technology one could ask, but not one scrap of civility in them. The wars were horrific, and nuclear exchanges smashed and irradiated huge swathes of the globe. Added to this were entire nations controlled by xenos, aliens, or by psychos and warp entities, demons. It was unfettered war on every conceivable level, and fought with a barbarity and brutality that is beyond conception in gentler times. To this backdrop, the Emperor arose. But before he revealed himself, he had already laboured for centuries on the creation of an army. His genetic mastery was more than many of his competitors, and he forged many a strain of genetically augmented super soldiers. His most potent, bar the Primarchs, were ever his custodian guards. Despite their potence, the time and resources it took to create one were preclusive of massed formations. So there were many stages, but one of the most important and widespread were the Thunder Warriors. Soldiers made from a different clay to fight a different war. For the thing that the Emperor required to do was to gain dominance of Terra. From there, he could harness its resources and then build and unleash his planned crusade across the stars. But perhaps the hardest war the Emperor ever fought, bar possibly the Horus Heresy, must have been the Wars of Unification. So many enemies, so various strengths, so terrible in their aspect and their power, they deployed their own forms of enhanced warriors, either robotically or genetically or even warp-twisted. The wars were to be fought with a level of ferocity that few can grasp, so weapons of unquenchable anger and destructive ability would be required. So did the Emperor recruit from the most vicious tribes and material, and then enhance them to a degree only slightly below that of a custodian, in strength and resilience, power and speed. The Thunder Warriors were much stronger than a Space Marine. Much. But corners were either cut by design or out of pragmatism. For the Thunder Warriors were always unstable. Often it would be a mental instability that would make them burst into unpredictable hyper-rage that could lead to a rampage. But it was more often physical instability, the heart exploding under the pressure, their minds collapsing. Some accounts could be hyperbolic, but it was recounted that some would simply twist inside their own skin or become geysers of blood at any time. Many will say that the Emperor cut costs and time required to perfect the process in his desire to unify Terra. Many will say that the Emperor was learning as he went and perfected the process in the Astartes, trading some raw power for longevity and stability. Many will say that the Emperor knew that they were a blunt instrument and that he required to bring the horrors on Terra to an end, and that he knew they would outlive their usefulness. So, like many thousands of Roy Batties, they were not built to last. These will also state that the ticking time bomb within all Thunder Warriors meant they would never be an issue for long if they did rebel, for in a short time they would simply burn out. The light that burns, as they say. The Thunder Warriors were the bulk of the Emperor's primary forces all throughout the Unification Wars. They fought all of the horrors of that age and were perfectly designed for it. Their power meant few could stand against them in the field. Their enhanced resistance to psychers and the warp even outshone those of the later Astartes, so they were equipped to strike down most enemies. They died in their thousands as the Emperor continued his genetic works and formulated the Primarchs and later the Astartes, the Space Marines, from their templates. As the war progressed, the Emperor's gene labs stopped producing Thunder Warriors and exclusively made the new format of gene soldiers, the Astartes, the Space Marines. Whatever one might think of the Emperor's modus operandi, his next actions were very direct. When the last nations fell before his grinding advance, only one place remained, a small rebel enclave on Mount Ararat. The Emperor amassed all the Thunder Warriors that remained, and in one hammer blow he sent them all in to wipe out the last separatists. What is told to the Imperium, even to this very day, is that the very last Thunder Warrior placed the flag of the Emperor into the carcass of the very last separatist that he had slain. Then that proud Thunder Warrior, the last of his kind, died of his wounds. Poetic, tragic, a fine example of patriotic zeal and self-sacrifice, a shining beacon for the generations to come. Alas, it is a lie. None can really know why it happened, not now. Some will say the Emperor identified a coup. These warriors, having no enemy to fight, must have planned their own future for when the war was over. Some will say the Emperor could not permit them to be at large in his newly civilized world. Some will say the Emperor saw them as a tool, that it simply outlived its usefulness. For whatever reason, the Custodian Guard were ordered to surround Mount Ararat, and then to slaughter every last surviving Thunder Warrior. Some tales hint that the Emperor may have even taken a hand in it personally, but most details state it may have just been his guard. But they wiped them out. The warriors that had given the Emperor victory had given him the jewel in the crown, terror, the cradle of humanity. These warriors he slew without pity or mercy. It is a secret he has kept from his Astartes, his Primaris, and his population for the long, long life of the Imperium. None know of this secret. So, if this is the Emperor's pathway, his character, an indication of his morality, his will as a human, powerful and immortal human, but a human, just imagine what he will be able to do if or when he has all of the power of a god. I have been Voldemort, your faithful servant. I hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to the Thunder Warriors and joining me in a quick glimpse at the darker underbelly of the setting. If so, then please do consider liking and subscribing. If so, then please do hit the notifications button. I would not want you to miss out. If you are a regular gentle listener and see the worth in what we are doing, then do please consider supporting us on Patreon if funds allow. There will be a link in the comments section. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.